Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to our session. Today, we're going to be talking about powering SAP transformation and using automation for the enterprise of tomorrow. I'm Andrew Hayden. I'm the Principal Product Marketing Manager for the Automate products here at Precisely, and I will be your host today. And later on, I will be joined by three of our outstanding solutions engineers who are from around the world, who are going to give you great demonstrations of some of the capabilities of our products when we talk to Philip, Sigrid, and Rishav. Now, most of this presentation is actually going to end up being those demonstrations. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to start off talking about the CIO's dilemma and really what are the things that keep CIOs awake at night and some of the things in the environment that are just causing struggles throughout your organization. I'm going to talk a little bit about Precisely Automate. What is our portfolio? What does it do for you? And as part of that, I'm going to show you some of the proven results that we've seen from customers over the years. And in doing so, I think it's really going to position what you can expect from automation and how it can help you as you transition and as you modernize your SAP environment. Then I'm going to turn it over to Philip, Sigrid, and Rishav, and they're going to take you through demonstrations of some of the capabilities that the Precisely Automate products have. We're going to look at migration and how you can improve data quality through that migration process and how you can do some of that core data transformation that you really need to be able to do as an ETL process when you're moving from ECC to S4HANA. Sigrid is going to talk to you about Fiori automation and what does that look like in terms of how to very simply automate some of those more complex Fiori processes, primarily focusing on business partner. And then finally, Rishav is going to show you kind of the intelligent future, and at least where we're starting, and how we look at automation or intelligence as being a core feature for automation going forward. Then I'm going to talk to you about some of the next steps and do a brief wrap up and a little bit more about Precisely before we close out the day. So let's talk a little bit more about that CIO's dilemma. The world in which we live and work today is really complex, and CIOs are facing a lot of different challenges. But we find these three areas constantly come up over and over. One is just the business environment. So we have this highly dynamic business environment that has kind of magnified since 2020, since the pandemic set in. So we've got these complex changes that are constantly happening in a massively disrupted environment again. And when you add on top of that the fact that we're all going through these SAP modernizations. So if you think about going from ECC to S4HANA, it's really at the core of a lot of our overall IT modernization. So for CIOs, it is this SAP modernization is a huge drain on resources, not only human resources, but budgets, things of that nature. And then on top of that, the additional complexity of AI. In the last 18 months, artificial intelligence has come into our companies, and we're now still trying to figure out what is the real opportunity for AI. So I think it's incumbent on CIOs and CIO organizations to figure out what does that AI future look like. Now, the other thing CIOs are dealing with is tension between today and tomorrow, because today we still have to run the business. The business has to continue running as we're looking at these transformation and advancement efforts for what are our IT organizations going to look like in the future. So today we're often dealing with long IT lead times, but we're trying to get to a point where we've got agile innovation. We have a lot of manual processes, which we're trying to get to be, scalable automation and put that behind it. I believe it was Gartner that said that automation is one of the CIO's top 5 imperatives for 2025 and 2026. So automation is a really, really important thing for our IT leadership. And then we're dealing with this fragmented, poor quality data that's in lots of different systems and in lots of different places. And we're trying to get it, and we want to get it to become this high integrity data that we can use for really data-driven insights, things we know that when we run analytics or we have an automated process, that at the end of the day, it's correct. That what we're saying and what we're reporting and what we're doing based on data is something that we can trust. So this tension is significant within our organizations. And at the same time, we have these high-level enterprise imperatives that our CEOs and other people are looking at going, these are the things I have to do. I have to increase revenue, and I have to increase revenue and profitability faster than inflation. And when we've got high inflationary environments, that can be very difficult. So, what are the things that, from an IT standpoint, we can do to help that, or at least lower some of the costs, which means we're talking about improving efficiency and effectiveness of our users. And automation is a really, really great way to drive productivity and drive that efficiency. And at the same time, we want to mitigate business risk. Now, there's lots of different areas where we're dealing with business risk, from everything from cyber threats to what is the risk of AI going to be in the future? What is the risk of, or what is the security risk of AI going to be? So, all of these things are imperatives that we're looking at and we're trying to adjust for. Now, specifically, we're going to talk a little bit more today about automation. And what you want to be able to do is align automation to those enterprise goals. Now, we already know, and I will demonstrate and talk through as we look at some of the results customers have had, how we can optimize business processes for some of those gains you're looking for. Simplifying SAP S/4HANA migrations. I mean, it is one of the most complex things that you're going to be going through. And you want to be able to apply automation in a way that's going to make that more streamlined and simpler. You want to speed up product launches. The faster you can get to market, the faster, again, you can start to see revenues from new products. You want to achieve AI-ready data. And there's a couple of different ways to do that. We're going to talk about it both from the automation standpoint and then just from the SAP standpoint, and then the overall data environment standpoint. One thing to realize is often automation will help you at that early stage, get rid of manual data entry processes. So you get rid of that initial data quality problem that you have, because let's face it, human hands are very error prone and human beings are very error prone. But then there's how do you also cleanse your data, and not only as you're going through something like a migration, but also then continue to make sure you've got the highest quality and the highest integrity data possible going forward after you've moved to S/4HANA. And overall then, how do we increase IT productivity? How do we leverage automation to increase IT productivity through something like, citizen developers that can take advantage of a no-code, low-code platform like we have? So these are some of the things that automation can do to help you align. Let's go drill down another level when we're talking about SAP modernization. SAP modernization has myriad challenges to it, but these four are ones we see all the time. And we've done some research that really backs this up. One of them is complexity. When we did a survey this year with ASUGS, the American SAP User Group, of SAP users and what are some of the challenges to automation as part of their modernization efforts, we found that 63% identified that complexity of business processes was the leading challenge they had for deploying and implementing automation in their organizations. SAP business processes are complex. Now, also, as we're going through that modernization process, it's time consuming. Depending on what you see, average modernization effort, average migration from ECC to S/4HANA can be, 1 to 2 years. But ASUG has done research. They found that it can take up to 6 years for some companies to go through it. And sometimes it's more than just moving one system, you're moving multiple systems. And the costs can be very high. ASUG found in research that S/4HANA migration, in that S/4HANA migration process, over a third of companies are over budget. So again, we've got this idea of what the resources are going to be, and we underestimate it. It's an extremely complicated process to go through. And then as you're going through the process, 54%, what we found in our research, again, earlier this year in 2025, is 54% struggle with mixed user interface environments. So often what you'll have is you not only are moving from ECC to S/4HANA, but say you're migrating, I was talking to a company last year, they're migrating 8 ECC systems into a single instance of S/4HANA. 2 of those ECC systems were legacy to them. They were their own systems. The other 6 they had gained through acquisition, which meant they had a tremendous amount of the data transformation they were going to have to do, process transformation, all kinds of things. But as a result, they're going to move those systems one at a time, which means they've got mixed UI environments. They've still got SAP GUI on the SAP ECC side, and they've got Fiori and the Web GUI or GUI for HTML on the S/4HANA side. So big changes there that companies are having to go through, and that can often create challenges and struggles for companies. So something to think about as we go through that modernization. All of these things have costs. All of these can be overcome with automation. So why the Precisely Automate platform? Well, one of the biggest things we know is faster time to value. It is possible with the Studio product, which I'll talk about in a moment, for you to, and we have examples of customers doing this. They buy the product on Tuesday and it is in production by Friday. They are using it, they're gaining value within a few days. So time to value, very fast time to value is extremely important. Low development timeframes because it's a low code, no code platform. And that leads into this lower total cost of ownership and that greater flexibility. So on that lower total cost of ownership, again, you're often talking about, because you have a low code, no code platform, you're able to have citizen developers doing a significant amount of that development work in the business. So we've got one customer, very large company, actually one of the largest companies in the world, and they've got a core group of about 25 Automate users that sit in their IT organization. And those 25 people then develop the complex data intensive workflow processes. But they support a network of well over 100 citizen developers around the world. And those citizen developers are rapidly able to develop and deploy automation locally. So that gives you a significantly or significant benefits when it comes to total cost of ownership, and also gives you a huge amount of flexibility about where you're going to deploy automation. Now, on top of that, we also offer the ability to integrate using APIs, other systems into our environment. So you can talk about, let's say, business partner. Yeah, we'll use business partner as an example, where maybe you've got data that is in both SAP we've got customer data in SAP, and you've got that same customer data or overlapping customer data in Salesforce. Now, within an evolved form, you can manage that data for both of those systems at the same time using APIs. Really gives you a lot of flexibility, gives you a lot of advantages. And then ultimately, it comes down to better business outcomes. And I'm going to show you what some of those better business outcomes look like in a minute. But we're talking about the things like an energy drinks company that cut their time to market in half for new products. Highly competitive industry, being able to get there faster and being able to save significant amounts of money and time. Precisely Automate portfolio is quite simple, actually. Starts with Studio. Studio is a desktop automation product that is perfect for mass data processes. So this is our premier Excel to SAP automation platform, if you will. And it enables users to work in Excel as their front end for managing SAP data. It doesn't matter whether they're working in ECC, where they're using the SAP GUI, or whether they're using Fiori, whether they're using GUI for HTML. Studio is able to manage in all of those formats. So what we talked about those mixed use environments, that's where Studio is able to do that. Studio Manager then gives you a centralized ability to oversee things like licensing and server-side execution of jobs, scheduling, things of that nature. And then Evolve is our full form and workflow or business process automation platform. So this gives you all of those capabilities that are within Studio Manager to take advantage of those Studio scripts, to build forms, and really drive a lot of benefits. And Rishav in his demonstration is actually going to talk a lot more about what the Evolve capabilities are. Some quick examples of things we've been able to do for people. So we've done this for over 20 years. You may not necessarily be familiar with Precisely, but many SAP users around the world are familiar with Windshuttle. So Windshuttle was acquired by Precisely about 5 years ago. So we are now part of that much broader data integrity portfolio that Precisely offers, but we still have that fantastic SAP automation experience that you've always come to know and love, if you will. We're in over 90 of the Fortune 100, and that is Automate alone, and Precisely is in even more. In 2024, we processed over 3 billion SAP records worldwide. So we are very familiar with SAP processes. We estimate that saved about 30 million days of labor over that time, and some specific examples of where customers have used us to save. The 97% reduction in the time to create a customer. So this is one of the largest companies in the world. They went from customer creation with a legacy system to using us. They cut their time from 144 hours to 6. They effectively cut their time from 3 weeks to less than a day to be able to create or manage a customer record. So that's significantly, obviously, saved them a ton of money and a ton of time. Internally, it's also significantly improved their customer experience. 90% reduction in the cost to process material changes. Simple material changes can be very time consuming in SAP. This company, on one single simple change, to do it manually, they were going to have to go out and hire people, even just looking at it on a per 100 materials basis. 100 materials were probably going to take them about 60 hours. It was going to cost them about $4,500. They found Studio. They automated that process very quickly. Now they figure it takes about 5 hours. They used the staff they had, cost them about $400. They are estimating that they saved about $500,000 in the first year alone by implementing Studio for that one single simple change. How many of those simple changes do you have in your company? 87% reduction in the time needed to qualify vendors and materials. So this is a specialty company, a specialty metals company that does custom alloys and sort of mission critical things for aerospace and the medical industry. Every time they needed to go find a new supplier, it took them about 2.5 years to do the qualification process. Very manual. Once they found automation, they're now able to do that in about 3 months. So think about how not only that changes just the speed with which they're able to do it, the ability for them to recall information because it's now all automated and centralized, but it means their customer conversation fundamentally changes. They're now not, it used to be, if they're still doing this manually, that if somebody today called them up and said, I need this, and they said, well, we've got to go find a new vendor or get a new material for that, call us back in 2028. Okay, that's not a great answer. But now that they've automated that process, it's call us back next quarter. We can get this worked out. And finally, one of the largest health services companies in the world needed the ability to automate their journal entry process. And they were looking at the huge number of journal entries in a very short period of time. So they had 20,000 journal entries in a 4-day closing window. They all had, because it's financial data and a number of other things, it had to be compliant, it had to be governed, they had to have an audit trail, and ultimately they needed any Excel files, which their accountants worked in and continue to work in, to be able to be attached to that SAP record. So we were able to deliver that for them. So you can see this is the kind of power that automation does for you today. And again, if you think about the promise of a lot of the promises being made by AI and AI companies right now and what it should be able to deliver, these are the kind of results you're looking for. Well, you can get that today, and you don't have to go through AI, and you don't have to think about what AI can do for you in the future. This is available today. All right, so let's talk about powering transformation. So that's what's available today, but there's a lot of things changing as we go through time. And I mentioned it earlier, one of the big things that we're always dealing with is this need for improving data quality as you go through migration. As you're moving from ECC to S/4HANA, we've talked to a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of people who go, the data in my ECC system is fragmented, or it's broken, or I have lots of different systems and I've gained them through acquisition. And I need to be able to know that the data going into my S/4HANA system is consistent and it's clean and it's going to be ready to go the day that I go live with my system. So it creates bad data creates a lot of challenges. You've got duplicate or missing incomplete records. You've got incorrect formatting, outdated values, complex ETL processes that I just mentioned. A lot of performance bottlenecks. Compliance risks is a big one that we hear about regularly. And then error propagation. Something's wrong now, and it's just going to cause other problems down the road. Philip is going to give you a demonstration now of how the use of Studio, Automate Studio with Precisely's Data 360 Analyze can really take care of a lot of those challenges that you've got as you're going through that migration process, as that data moves from ECC to S/4HANA. So I'll turn it over to Philip, and he will walk you through what we're able to do for you in that area. Philip?
Hey Andrew, thank you for that. Hello everyone, my name is Philip. I'm going to take over now and present you today about the SAP to S4 migration scenario with Data 360 Analyze in conjunction with Automate Studio. So first we start here with a flow that we have created here. As you can see, that was the main menu, and we can create a flow out there, and then we just need to put all of these small nodes here and do configure them. So the creation of this is pretty simple. It starts first with the nodes which are available here on the left side. So as you can see, there are input connectors, aggregation and transformational nodes, correlation nodes, and profiling output connectors as well, and so on. So this flow works in a way where we are having a consolidated node where I'm going to double click. As you can see, we're using here a creation nodes where we are creating the data to an Excel sheet, and we're calling the Studio Excel, where we have our Excel sheet data where we downloaded from that old ECC server that where we want to cleanse that data. And once the data has been uploaded, as you can see on the notes here, we have numbers. That means the record of the data. And once clicking there, you'll see the data that we have uploaded is just full of overlapping duplicates that, of course, we have put with a purpose, but this represents of many customers how they're interacting with systems when they're consolidating multiple records, which then turns out to be a lot of duplicates. Right, so for each column here, you can see the tool is making like a aggregated consolidation of statistics, which means how many blank values are here, what's the type level of the data quality, and so on, which indicates, okay, this one, it has a lot of things going on here. So as a second step, what we are actually doing is that we are coming here to the data profiler, and data profiler give us actually an insight of what is actually going on with the data, with this data. So as you can see here, it indicates of what the data is typed about, like if it's a string, if it's a boolean, or if it's something like what type of data it's consistent, this file that we have uploaded. It also uses the possibility of just interpreting some of the data. For example, here we have city, so you interpret that, okay, this data is about cities. And then it has like a confidence rate, and then it has, of course, values like minimum, maximum value, double values, and so on. So technically, it runs like a profiling, which then helps you to indicate what kind of data you have uploaded here to work with. So furthermore, as a next step, what comes into the process is once we have uploaded that data from our Excel file containing all of these duplicates, of course, we want to cleanse all of that. And the first starting process goes with removal of duplicates, right? So that's a note here available in the aggregation transformation where we are just clicking there. And once that is done, we just need to indicate, but it's very easy to use, as you can see. So you just pull it up there, like a drag and drop, and then you just assign all of those elements that are available into that sheet. For example, title, name, housing numbers and street, postal codes, and so on. So it will look for every column and it will actually remove the data duplication which is present there. And once I click here to see how that is going to look like now, as you can see, the replication of the duplicated data is not present anymore. We have cleansed that part. But however, we still have indicators like, okay, there's like 127 records leading with trailing white spaces and so on. So we still have typos, which is something that we don't want to have because we want to create a qualified data before we move it to S4. And for that very purpose, we are adding here this node, which is called trimming fields with white spaces. And the trimming field can be inserted in a way that it will work with which list. You can actually very much configure this one too by adding what kind of characters should be trimmed or, let's say, detected. And once detected, these characters are going to be taken into consideration for trimming them. You can trim also in a direction, characters and string and so on. So in this case scenario, once I'm going to click on this 127 records, as you can see here, the fields of the columns have become more greener, which means now the data is like pretty much trimmed down and it's ready to be used for the further case scenarios. So that was the first step of, let's call it like deduplication, cleansing, and enhancing the data quality. Now it's time to enrich the data. So before we want to push the data into S4, we want to look up for some values which are not available, of course, because the data from the old server is not completely corresponding to the new S4, as per the fact that the new S4 has, like, let's say, new fields, new type of data, and so on. So for that very same purpose, we have this lookup S4 HANA value consolidated node, which is consisting of nothing but a joins, which you can find here in the correlation field. And these joins are actually going to look up values consisted here into this inserted document, which is an input connector giving these values here. And the lookup values will be presented here. So as you can see here for the sales organization, it will look up the values from the old one, which was this one, for example, and we are adding like a new one, the string here, 1010. Same will go for the other distribution channels, whereas we are also having exception, which means this left orphans here, this part when I click it, this is data that haven't been, let's say, well maintained, and we don't have enough information about it, which means we don't have an old sales organization, which then will actually result into not matching data to be applied with a new sales organization for S4. And for that very same moment, we are leaving this data, and we can build up a rule where we can actually create an email and send it to a person that will receive this kind of elements of that sheet, which haven't been parsed with the new sales organization and will be taken into further consideration. That can be also done. Same goes for the distribution channel and the lookup division as for the sales organization. However, for the postal codes for these customers, we cannot actually access them with, let's say, data that, as we have also enriched this three nodes here. And for that very same purpose, we will be using a transformational node, which is available here, and it can operate with a Python code, which is nothing but a low code, calling some libraries to enhance this kind of fields, which are needed for this process. That means you can actually build some rules in your own system by enhancing some Python code for some data which is not available in some sources. And as you can see here, it parses automatically based on the address, the postal codes, which are then inserted here into this field. Once this part is done, the second part is the rest of the data which is needed to happen there. And for that very same purpose, which is also not available through the showcase of that data that I just recently showed, we can use, for example, API calls, which then will, let's say, automatically reach a certain API call, and then it will grant us some information about the rest of the data which is needed, for example, like the sales office, sales group, shipping conditions, text classification, and so on. And after everything has been set into place, we can click on this enrichment node, which is actually executing these two processes. And once done, you will see here that on the right side, my new S4 data, which is ready to be executed, is being completely fulfilled. And now the data is ready to be set into our new S4 instance. For that very same purpose, the only last thing that we also need to do in order to make this happen is to match the output fields with our Excel where we have our automate transaction at the end. And for that, we want to reorder the fields, as you can see, into the right manner so we can match the transactional script from Automate Studio into the Excel. And once that is done, we can call this. And this node is nothing but an output field where we are just outputting all of this data into our new S4 Excel sheet containing a script from Automate Studio, which will then push the data and then automatically execute and write all the records into S4HANA. And with this simple scenario, we have covered our journey from SAP ECC, the old instances full of unqualified data, which we further qualified by removing the duplicates, cleansing it, enriching it, and then we're pushing it back to S4 through our Automate Studio. Thank you.
Thanks, Philip. That was fantastic. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sigrid, and Sigrid's going to talk to you about how you can automate Fiori processes. One of the things we heard from a number of customers over the years as they moved from ECC to S4HANA and started adopting Fiori apps as their way of managing SAP data was it really didn't fix a lot of that underlying complexity that they had dealt with in the SAP GUI. So we introduced last year automation for Fiori and some of those cloud modernization challenges that you can overcome by automating those processes. So I'm going to turn it over to Sigrid, and she is going to walk you through what Studio for Fiori looks like and how it can help you. And specifically, she's going to focus on business partners. So Sigrid, take it away.
Let's take a look at how Studio Fiori automation can manage your SAP data. We'll be looking at business partners. We'll choose to update company data, opening that business partner, navigating to the company data, and making changes. Once we finish the recording, we can then map the fields that we've captured and test. We can also include adding lookups to make it easy for business users to complete the data and post those updates to SAP. Let's take a look. I'm here in Studio and I'll choose Fiori Automation and recording a Fiori app. And then I can fill in data to include my Launchpad address and any login information I need. I've already got that saved, so I'll select my system and then sign in. We'll click Start Recording. And then I can navigate to the app however I wish. I have a shortcut here for business partners, and I'll choose to open the app. Now I can search for the business partner however I wish. Of course, you can also do updates. I'm putting in a role and a business partner. And then I'll open it up. Once I click Edit here, I'll actually be recording what it is that I wish to, in this case, update. So we'll go to Roles, and I'll choose the company role for sales data. And then you'll see I have additional roles on the top, and I'll choose company codes. And then I simply just need to select one. So I'll open one of the company codes. And then I can start modifying the data. And that's what you need to do to capture it. So I can use lookups if I wish. And I'll go ahead and change payment terms and tolerance group. And because this is a draft-based app and I've navigated several levels down, I have to click Apply. And because I've gone into company codes as well, I click Apply one more time. And now I'm back at the top, so I can click Save. You'll see that it's been posted successfully, and now I can click the End Recording button to complete the first step, which is recording. Now you'll see the fields that we captured as part of this recording, and we could start mapping it to Excel. So I'll go ahead and move my messages here. We'll have the run log and the validate log in B. And note, validate is app specific. A lot of apps support validation, but not all of them. And then you'll see I have a couple of system related fields I can leave alone. So I'm going to put my business partner here in column C. And then you'll see I have the company code data, which includes the business partner again. So we can reuse that. And then I want my company code. And then I have the fields that I changed captured here. So I can just grab those and start them in column E. That's it. That's all I have to map. I can go ahead and add an additional row. It's always good to do more than one. And I can put in another company code. And we can make some changes to the data. And now I'm ready. I can validate and check the data. And I'll save both of the files, the data file, which is our template, as well as the script. You'll see here the first one was successful and the second one had a bad payment term. Now by default, lookup values will give you just the code. I'm going to swap back here and provide some lookup values. So for payment terms, I can choose in the properties lookup columns and choose the actual terms as well as text. I can do the same for tolerance group. And you'll note this is company code specific, so we can include company code in there. And I can do the same for sort key and then planning group. So now as a business user, when I run into an issue, I can click in the column and do a lookup values and make adjustments. And I can search as I'm going along. And you'll see here, it should be NT30. So I'll overwrite that and then I'll validate just the one that failed. And now I can post. So now we've updated the business partners. And you'll notice when I selected company code, I didn't have to do anything special to capture that. Simply by drilling down into a company code, I captured that field. So you can now publish that and provide that to a specific business user to maintain business partner company data. If you have Evolve or Studio Manager, you can submit that and make it available on the server. I hope you can see how quick and easy that was to be able to create an automation using a Fiori app, in this case maintaining a business partner. We could validate and post, handle errors, provide lookup values to make it simple for business users to leverage this. And it all supports SAP Clean Core. We're automating through the APIs, and it's very similar to our Studio Transaction product, if you're familiar with that. 3 simple steps to record, map, and run using Fiori automation. Thank you.
Thanks, Sigrid. So hopefully now you have a better idea of what we're able to do today, what we are delivering today in terms of that migration and how you clean and transform that data during the migration process. And once you've moved to S/4HANA and have chosen Fiori as your preferred user interface, how you can automate that and really gain a lot of those advantages that we've seen with Studio throughout the years. Now we're going to look a little bit at the future, and Rishav is going to walk you through our upcoming intelligent autocomplete solution. And this is a solution that uses intelligence in a way that we'd always heard from customers this is what they were looking for. It's a practical application of how do you take an algorithm and really help drive benefits and values into the business. So I'm going to turn it over to Rishav, and I'll be back in a minute.
Thanks, Andrew. Hello, everyone. My name is Rishav Kumar, and I'm a sales engineer for Automate products at Precisely. Before moving into sales engineering last year, I spent almost 10 years working on Automate products as part of both the engineering and product teams. The topic I'm covering today is Evolve Intelligent Autocomplete. This was a long sought after feature in Evolve and is perfect for post S4 migration stabilization. To frame today's demo, let me start with what Automate Evolve is. Evolve is our workflow-enabled process automation platform for SAP. It's designed for the realities we all face in SAP. Processes that are data intensive and complex. Think hundreds of fields, multiple data objects, cross-functional approvals, and rules that change as the business changes. With Evolve, business users work in web forms or Excel while IT can keep control if needed. We get deep SAP integration, robust governance and approvals, audit or ROI reporting, and a no-code, low-code way to adapt quickly without long development cycles. Now, this foundation is exactly why intelligent autocomplete fits so well. When a process has lots of fields and rules, intelligent autocomplete reduces keystrokes and guide users to the right values without exploding those rules complexities. In a minute, I'll show you that for a material master use case. First, a quick look at why rule-heavy processes struggle and where intelligent autocomplete removes the friction. This slide highlights the challenges of material master creation. With constant new product introductions and frequent changes, the process becomes highly manual and complex. Each step involves manual data fields and dependencies, which increase the risk of errors and delays. The screenshot on the right illustrates how detailed and error-prone this process can be, requiring precise data entry across numerous attributes. These inefficiencies not only slow down operations but also impact data quality, making automation and governance critical for accuracy and speed. But even with automation, there will be challenges. Now, when quality matters, the default response is add rules. We validate field by field, layer across field logic, and try to capture every exception. In practice, that quickly turns into hundreds, sometimes thousands of hard-coded rules. There are three consequences for this. First, it's expensive to build and even harder to maintain as products, plants, or policies change. Second, it creates a bottleneck around scarce SMEs who know the tribal logic. Third, numeric or contextual edge cases still slip through because rules can't cover every variation without becoming unmanageable. Now, Evolve makes it possible to manage this complexity, but maintaining and updating all those rules is time consuming and slows down business agility. That's why we need smarter solutions like intelligent autocomplete to keep quality high without overwhelming our teams. Now, master data use case is a perfect fit to be automated using the intelligent autocomplete feature. SAP master data is highly structured. For example, when you create a new material, most fields can be predicted from a few key inputs you can see on this diagram, like plant or product type, right? This means we don't need users to fill out every field. Intelligent autocomplete leverages this structure to propose the right values, making data entry faster and more accurate. Now let's see how Evolve Intelligent Autocomplete works in practice. First, we stay inside a familiar Evolve web form. For example, a new material request. The user enters just a minimum set of inputs, let's say description or a plant number. Behind the scenes, our precisely developed algorithm evaluates those inputs against your indexed SAP data model. It then proposes the most likely output values for fields like MRP type or product hierarchy, right? So users don't have to memorize rules or search for reference data. Finally, those proposed values are pre-populated and visually flagged in the form, making review and validation faster and transparent. The control is key here. With the field control table, you decide which fields are input versus which are output. Set confident range and visuals and keep governance and approvals in your existing workflow. And because the framework is extensible, you can apply the same pattern to additional fields and domains over time. Now let's see that in action. this is my evolved front end. And on this, I have a form created for intelligent autocomplete. I'll open this form. And in this, you can see I have my values, which I'm going to search on the top, which is my input values for the algorithm. And then all of the fields that you see here, these are related to material, like basic data, MRP information, and accounting information for a material, will be derived by the algorithm. Let's put an input value, which is a material description, and using the algorithm get values. All right, so this algorithm now have populated all the values you can see. Along with the values, it also gives us the color of these fields. Now this color gives us the confidence of the algorithm on the values that it has predicted. The green means the confidence is more than 90%. The orange means the confidence is between 10 and 90%. And then we can have blue values as well, which is not there in this algorithm or in this output, but we can have that value that is below 10%. Now, all these 10% and 90% values are configurable. We can put any value 60, 40 based on whatever we expect our data or algorithm to give us the output. And on top of that, it also gave us the value percentage or the prediction percentage. Here you can see for the industry sector field, the prediction for the value M is 100%. That means for all of these, the value should be M. Whereas here you can see the prediction is 90% and so on and so forth. So this gives the user some idea about the confidence of the values that the algorithm has given as an output. User also have an option to change these values if they want to. Let's say I'm changing this value to something else which is not predicted by the algorithm and reevaluate, which means I'm just checking what are the percentage or what are the confidence levels of the value that I have given. Now it's given the value or the color as blue, which means it's less than 10%. This gives the user real control on how they want to use the algorithm, right? We can choose to keep the values predicted by the algorithm, or we can choose to update them as needed. I'll just enter the remaining values. I'll select the participants and just continue the form. With this, I have created my request for creation of a new material. Now you saw how easy it is for me to create a material request with intelligent autocomplete. I didn't had to put values or insert values for all the different fields which were available. Now let's discuss the further use cases or use case scenarios for intelligent autocomplete. You have seen the flexibility in how you can use the intelligent autocomplete feature, and I want to emphasize that you can apply it whether you are a new customer to Evolve or you are already using it for your existing material master processes, which are implemented in Evolve. But one thing to remember is that the intelligent autocomplete will not replace all business rules. Some of the business rules will still be there. To wrap things up, there's another use case for which you can use intelligent autocomplete, and that is for data cleansing. By surfacing likely values and highlighting inconsistencies, it helps you quickly spot and correct data quality issues. In short, intelligent autocomplete isn't just for new projects. It's flexible accelerator for improving, maintaining, and cleaning up your SAP data processes. Thanks. That's all I have for today. Back to you, Andrew.
All right. Well, thanks, Rishav, and thanks, Philip, and thanks, Sigrid. Those all were fantastic. And hopefully, like I've said before, overall, this is giving you a much better idea of how Precisely Automate can help you really drive value through your SAP system. We've talked about that faster time to value. We talked about that lower total cost of ownership. And hopefully you can sort of derive that and understand from the examples I showed you and from the demonstrations that you saw. the greater flexibility in terms of working across your entire SAP environment and in implementing a citizen developer program. Those better business outcomes that I talked about. We're literally looking at dollars saved, time saved, money made, speed to market. It's just incredible to look at all the different ways that you can get better business outcomes through automation and through the Automate platform. And all of this is built on a proven track record. We've done this for over 20 years. We are intimately familiar with how SAP works, and we're able to deliver those benefits to you today and into the future. And also across whatever environment you're in, whether you're still in ECC, whether you're moving through that process, or whether you've already moved to S/4HANA. So how can we help you adopt smarter automation? Well, precisely, we've got a fantastic set of resources for you, not only within Automate, but we also have a consulting services group that can help you with things like an S/4HANA migration deep dive. They can look at what you're doing and they can identify where you may have gaps, where you may have holes, or where some of the unexpected kind of landmines that you don't expect are. They can also do an automation strategy review and an AI data readiness review for you. And finally, if you just want to know more about Precisely and what Precisely Automate can do for you, get in touch with us. We'll have a conversation. We're happy to talk, and we can give you a demonstration that is more specific to your exact need. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Precisely, just a little bit more about us. We are the leader in data integrity, which means that we focus on delivering the accurate, consistent, and contextualized data that you need for making confident business decisions. We've got about 12,000 customers worldwide. We're in 93 of the Fortune 100. And on any given day, we've got about 2,700 employees. Now, if you want to find out more, please go to precisely.com. There is lots of information there, not only about Precisely Automate, but about the entire portfolio and how we can help you with your automation and data needs in your SAP environment and across your entire IT environment. And finally, I just want to thank everyone for being here today. I know your time is valuable, and I very much appreciate that you have chosen to spend it with us. If you have questions, please feel free to type them in. Somebody from Precisely will get back to you with an answer to your question, or check us out at precisely.com. And in the meantime, once again, thank you very much. And I hope everyone has a happy and healthy day. Thanks. Bye.